Welcome to Bold Talk series where creativity, leadership, ideas, innovation come together. My name is Epi Ludvik, and today I have a privilege to have a short one-on-one conversation with Aaron Strout, managing partner at Aardwolf and the host of the exec producer of the Reaching Higher podcast. Aaron, great seeing you, man, and looking forward to this Bold Talk series.
Me too, Epi. And it's been a while, and I'm glad that we reconnected.
Yeah. Well, this is one of the reasons why we do these bold talks is to reconnect with people and also to shed some light on what you're doing. And obviously, we do a lot of things, but we don't get updated. So here's the time to do it and share. Now, Aaron, we know each other for a long time. You've been in marketing ever since I knew you and way before. What first drew you into the world of marketing, and how did you early interest experience shape your path in the marketing field?
I'll tell you, I got in a somewhat unorthodox way, and I'll keep the version short. I was a Russian studies major in undergrad and grad school. In 1991, when I was at Georgetown, the wheels fell off the Soviet Union. And so I had plans to go over there and maybe get started in business. That didn't happen. Growing up, my dad was a computer programmer, so I learned how computers worked. I knew how to do some light programming. And so after futzing around for a little bit post grad school, I was working at a financial services software firm. And the woman that I was working for said, "Hey, this contract is just about up. My parents are actually looking to hire someone at their direct marketing firm. They can teach you how to be a direct marketer. And what they need is someone that can actually help them with their email and the Wi-Fi and all those good things, because this was just as the World Wide Web was born." And so from there, I really embraced it. And then I went to Fidelity Investments, became a chief marketing officer after for two startups, and then spent the last 14 years at Real Chemistry. So not your traditional path into marketing, but I've really loved being able to reach out to people and connect with them and help them accomplish their goals in that regard.
That's amazing. Now, you had a dynamic career across major roles, leading marketing at the Real Chemistry to hosting your own podcast. Was there a moment where you knew it was time to create something of your own?
I really loved this question, and I liked a lot of the questions that you sent over. So, yes, there was. I would say we parted ways, Real Chemistry and me, last September, and it was time. We got to a place where I felt like I was sort of running the same playbook over and over again, and I was getting tired of it. And I'm not my best self, obviously, when, if I'm not invigorated by what I'm doing day to day. I've loved podcasting. I've been doing it since 2006. I love marketing, but wanted to be able to take it in a different direction. And so I would say, shortly after uh, we parted ways last September, I really started to think about what I wanted to do. I knew that I didn't want to have a boss anymore other than myself. And I really wanted to lean into the podcasting piece and then also continue to do some strategic consulting on the side.
Yeah. Well, you always worked in a lot of larger companies and with bigger teams. What do you enjoy the most about working in a more boutique, hands-on setting now compared to larger agencies and bigger teams?
Yeah, there are benefits to both. So at Real Chemistry, we had a 2,100 person team, and I managed a team of about a dozen folks over the years. And so it is nice to be able to have all those resources. It's nice to be able to have the budgets and to be able to really feel like you're making a difference. And I saw the company grow from about 47 million in revenue to almost a $3.1 billion exit by the time I was done. But to your specific question, working more boutique, you really get to be more choosy about who you're working with. You get to have more of an individual impact. And, I'm helping someone right now with some event programming. And so being able to teach them how to use LinkedIn to do paid advertising, or, what the elements are, bringing the right panel together and recording and getting that set up. So I think both are fun, but it's been really nice to be able to pursue something that's a little bit closer to my own passions.
Yeah. Now, with your podcast, Reaching Higher, it's a podcast that spotlights purpose-driven voices. How do you choose the people you interview?
Well, I appreciate you asking about this one. And I would encourage everyone to listen, because they can find Reaching Higher on all the major platforms: Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and iHeart. And regarding how do I find people, it's one of those things where there's some that I've interviewed for past interviews. Like Al Roker is someone from the Today Show that's coming up, and I had the privilege of interviewing him for two podcasts ago. It was the Live from Stubbs podcast, along with a friend, John Harris, who's at Conagra. And so what I try to do is really, one, I ask a lot of my friends, who do you think would be a good guest on the show? And two, what's the angle? And clearly the people that I'm interviewing need to have something that they're doing from a societal good perspective. And you'd be surprised, most public figures are doing something either implicitly with their day-to-day job, like a doctor or a politician. Well, some politicians, not all politicians, but then finding people that are interesting to me that I feel like have a cool story and are doing something from a societal good perspective that my listeners would like to listen to.
Yeah. Um, great, great way that you have to way get the right people, the right and giving the value to the audience. Now, in terms of marketing, do you cover a lot of the marketing on your podcast?
I do, and that's one of the benefits of, being a marketer is I embraced social media early days. I think that's one of the reasons we get connected. I've done digital marketing, I've done influencer marketing, I've done account-based marketing, and so understanding content creation, understanding social, understanding how to get people to engage with your content, I think is a real benefit. Now, this is a little bit of a different animal because the podcasts I've done historically have always been attached to the company I've worked with. So we've had a database, we've had our own social channels and paid budgets to support that. So this is a little bit scrappier, back to your question about the boutique versus not, where it takes a lot of elbow grease, it takes a lot of hustling, but it's something that I get up every day and I'm excited about. And, it makes me look forward to opening my inbox and makes me look forward to see what my engagement has been. So I'm really excited about that part of it.
Nice. Now, talk about the marketing a little bit and companies. What do most of the companies still get it wrong about all forms of marketing, from paid, earned, shared, and all media?
Well, this was an interesting question because it is something that there's sort of individual flaws that every company, or blind spots, I should say, every company runs into. But I think, and I love the fact you reference what I've called peso my whole life, right? The paid, earned, shared, and owned. I think the problem is that those things work best if they're done in concert with one another. They should be planned together. They should be executed together, because really, if you're creating content, to sort of feed your marketing campaign, there's an element of create once and then use many. So I think the biggest issue to your specific question is a lot of companies do these activities in a silo. They have a social media team and or agency. They have a paid media team and or agency. They have a web team. And so these things don't ever work quite as well together as they could. And so you leave a lot of money on the table by not doing them in concert, but rather doing them in silos.
Yeah, yeah, it's super important to be able to synchronize it. It's just like a symphony, right? And so if you're missing a one and one is like not tuned properly, it just doesn't really, like you said, you leave a lot of money on the table. And so a role of marketer is like to be able to maximize the campaigns that you can. Now, when it comes to the brands, you worked with a lot of different sectors like healthcare, technology, consumer goods. Which of those spaces challenge your creativity the most, and why?
Yeah, I had to give this one some thought. And so I started in financial services when I was at Fidelity, and then did technology, consumer, and then most recently, as you mentioned, healthcare. People probably would expect that I would say healthcare, but I think financial services was one of the more tricky ones. The regulations are equally rigid, and especially because I was at Fidelity from 1997 to 2006. So people were just figuring out the rules of digital and then ultimately social media. And healthcare, we were lucky enough to bring a company into the fold when I was at Real Chemistry. They're called 21 Grams. They actually just won several Cannes Lions, which was an amazing award. But there were two things in particular over the years that we did that I was really proud of. And I did, this in conjunction with them. One was we bought a cover of this magazine called MMN, which is a very specific one, or one that we cared a lot about at Real Chemistry, medical marketing and media. And we did a cover at the beginning of the pandemic called Health Over Self. And the idea was celebrating all of these doctors and nurses and the brave things that they were doing. And then the other is we helped this client Insight with something called the Unseen Journey. And it was one of the first uses of generative AI, particularly on the video side. And it was just, I remember watching the video for the first time. It was a 10-minute short that we did, almost like a mini documentary. And I got teary eyed because of the fact that it was just such a powerful way to demonstrate sort of the effect of something that Insight was creating. And so, it does take more work in regulated industries, but it is one of those things where it's really gratifying if you can pull it off. And I feel like we did some amazing things at at Fidelity, we did some really amazing things at Real Chemistry. And so yeah, it just takes a little bit more stick to itivism, and it takes a little bit more digging down and really sort of exploring the art of the possible.
Yeah. What about healthcare? What do you?
In terms of what, like the creativity within healthcare?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Obviously, the healthcare can go quite broad, right? You have a pharmaceutical one side, then you have the other. But how regulated it is? Is it second to financial? You would say?
It's probably more strictly regulated just in the sense that it is, dealing with people's health and their well-being, but in financial services, you definitely had a lot of rules and regulations, and Fidelity was a little bit more conservative than the average bear, so that also made it tricky. I would say in healthcare, you can do quite a bit, and they are allowing the rules to be pushed because they realize that, for people to know about new therapies and drugs and treatments, you can't just run these boring ads with 10 minutes of disclaimer. I mean, obviously you need to make sure people are aware of these things, but if you are willing to sort of sit down and think about, okay, what are the musts that we have to do, and then how can we be creative, can we be funny versus just having two people up in bathtub up on the hill. So it's really just, it requires a different level of creativity, and I've been blessed to work with some people on the creative side. Frank Mazzola, who is the chief creative officer and one of the heads of 21 Grams, and Paolo Simas, who is my partner in crime at Real Chemistry for a long time, who's now at Cadiko. And they have teams that are amazing, but it's really sort of deconstructing and saying, what can we do? How do we push the boundaries? How do we make sure our clients feel safe? How do we make sure that we stay within the regulations? But it is that much more rewarding when you do it and you do it well, and then come out on the other side and the client's thrilled, you have great results. And then if you can win awards on top of that, that's icing on the cake.
Yeah, yeah. Well said. Now, looking at the future of marketing, obviously, beside AI, what trends do you think are real game changers and which are just a hype?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to discount the power of generative AI because I feel like we've just started to scratch the surface of that, and I think that's going to work best in partnership with human beings. But to your specific question, I think influencer marketing, which isn't a new thing per se, but I think what you're going to see is more micro influencers. So, as an example, in healthcare, there are people that are well-known TikTokers, right? I actually have a couple of them lined up to be on the Reaching Higher podcast. Dr. Bio, and then Dr. Joel Brevel, and they do very different things, but they are there to sort of help create awareness, to dispel disinformation. And so there are people like this, patient advocates, nurses, doctors, etc., that you can connect with, and this works in any facet. But these people that are creators that are actually, I want to say, more influential, but they have a tremendous amount of influence in a specific area, and their audiences have really bonded with them and feel like they're connected to them. So I think companies tapping into the power of these micro influencers and understanding it doesn't have to just be a famous musician or a famous actor or a famous politician, but it really can be one of these new creators that are doing amazing work and really deeply engaging with their audiences.
Yeah. So it's no longer about just celebrities, right?
Yeah, and celebrities, if it's for the right treatment or cause or product, they can be very powerful still because they have the recognition. But with the creator, they're pros at engaging with their audience, whereas a famous actor or musician may or may not engage with their audience much. And so that's the thing, is just remembering that it's that power of engagement that really makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Engagement, engagement, engagement. That's the key. Now, if you
That's right.
could give yourself, your younger self, one piece of advice before starting your journey in marketing, what would it be?
Yeah, I had to think about this one a bit because I'm sure there are probably a dozen things that I'd tell my younger self. One of my guess was, I wish I was a little less risk averse and pushed boundaries a little bit more. I had a family to provide for, and so that always put some guardrails on in terms of what you're willing to do and where you're willing to do it. But I would also have given myself advice to do more networking early. I would consider myself an Uber networker now. I think I've got 20,000 connections across a variety of different social media sites, but it's sort of like the power of money and compounding, right? If you start investing $100 when you're 21 and do so until you're 65, you're a millionaire. And so I have definitely had the benefit of connecting with a lot of great people like yourself over the years, but I wish that I had started doing it sooner. So those are, I guess, the two pieces of advice I would have given to my younger self.
Nice. Now, what does the word bold mean to you, Aaron?
What does the word bold mean to me? That is a great question. I feel like it's living your life without fetters and without, feeling free to be who you truly are and to show up as your authentic self and not to be ashamed of the good, the bad, and anything in between. Being authentic, I think, and not being afraid to hold back.
That's a great way to end, Aaron. Great seeing you. It's been a long time. Looking forward to have more of these conversations, hopefully in the near future. Always be great and always be bold. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Epi.
Take care.